Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I work for a living, but yet I'm still getting evicted.
My stress level now is absolutely peaking.
Eviction notice. People living in tents in a Vancouver park are given 2 days to leave. Also,
I'm at a point where I hate Squamish, or I hate living in Squamish.
families struggle as childcare spaces fail to keep up with growth in one Vancouver suburb. And
Bats are particularly cool.
So the cool thing about these guys' wings,
why a team of BC scientists says it's vital to stop a fungus killing millions of bats.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. 6 p.m. Wednesday. That's the deadline for people illegally camping in Vancouver's Oppenheimer Park to leave. And Mike is live at the park tonight. And Mike, 10 city residents there got eviction orders this morning.
Yeah, these eviction orders handed out starting at 9 o'clock this morning, Anita. More than 200 people living in this tent city in Oppenheimer Park. Now they've been told, many of them who've been living here for many, many months, they've been told they've got to be out within 48 hours from right now. The question is, will they leave?
Don't take it.
Going from tent to tent,
Just listen to them.
park rangers and BC housing staff,
Nothing that's come out of your mouth is true.
armed with eviction notices. More than 200 people living here in Oppenheimer Park illegally ordered to pack up and leave by Wednesday at 6 p.m.
They should have given us 30 days, not just 2 days. It's like, for all these people that live in here, it's not right.
Others, like Amber Christensen Bird, say they are more than ready to go.
I don't want to be here. This sucks. It's hard.
How do you survive here?
You just do.
The park board citing increase in health and safety concerns for the eviction order. There have been 17 fires in the park since February, and police are concerned about an escalation in violence.
My stress level now is absolutely peaking, and one day everything's great, and the next day they turn around and they it's guerrilla warfare. That's what it is.
BC Housing says it has found more than 100 units of safe and stable accommodation for people here. All are in publicly owned and non-profit-run buildings, including single-room occupancy units, many recently renovated. A number of shelter spaces are also available for the campers until there's more suitable housing.
So our homeless outreach team has been working in the park for months now, connecting with people. The people that they've connected with, they've then been working with BC Housing to identify housing options for them. At this point in time, we believe that we have sufficient housing available for the people who are interested to go, and our focus now is on working with those folks to help them move.
Hector Bravo says he'll leave as long as it's for somewhere secure.
I want a safe place, right?
So you are going to pack up and go?
It's supposed to be, but she says she's going to try to get me in a better place with a private bathroom. So we'll see.
So Hector, like quite a few people here, Anita, he just wants a safe, secure place to live with a bit of privacy. Coming up a little bit later in our broadcast, I'll have an extended interview with Amber Christensen Bird, who you saw earlier in that piece. Have some more thoughts from her on what's been happening here and what probably will happen in the next couple of days. Anita?
All right, Mike Killeen live for us tonight in Oppenheimer Park. Thanks, Mike. And frustration is setting in for parents living along BC's Sea to Sky corridor. As Belpuri reports, the area has expanded so rapidly that it's become impossible to find childcare.
Playground chatter among parents is often about the state of childcare.
Impossible, crisis,
Stressful?
emergency, dangerous.
Infant toddler care, that's newborns to 3-year-olds, is the most difficult to find. 14-month-old Killeen has been waiting since before she was born.
Put her on the wait list for various daycares when I was 4 months pregnant. Most of them don't respond, or it's 2020, 2022. We'll get you in when we get you in. It's years long.
The situation for 3 to 5-year-olds and for school-age children is equally dire. Recently, parents lined up overnight in the rain under tents to snare 25 spots for before and after school care. Across the board, there are only about 700 spaces to serve 3,600 children.
There you go.
It's one reason why, even though Lindsay Nevison and her husband are both home with a new baby, their 2-year-old still goes to daycare 2 days a week.
We discussed why keep your kid in daycare if you are both home and don't need to actually have them in there. But if we were to give them up, there is a good chance we would probably never get them back.
Squamish is among the fastest growing communities in the province as young families try to escape Metro Vancouver housing prices. In the last 5 years, the number of babies born at the local hospital has increased almost 50%.
The lack of childcare isn't just a problem in Squamish. It's tough across the entire Sea to Sky corridor. The cost of living in the region and the cost of housing are certainly factors, but it doesn't fully explain what's going on.
In July, a private daycare full to capacity with 200 families waiting to get in closed its doors for good.
We didn't have enough qualified staff. For our toddler program, you have to have 2 qualified teachers, one that we had plus myself, and the other lady moved back to Vancouver.
Recruiting and retaining early childhood educators is difficult.
To pay $1,600 for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom basement suite is a lot of money for somebody who's making $20 an hour working in childcare.
Parents worry about who will fill the gap.
A lot of the time it's unlicensed, unregistered day homes that are just opening up, like moms that haven't been able to go back to work that have to find some other type of income.
Experts say there's no one solution to the problem.
We need investment in more licensed spaces. We need affordability for families, and importantly, we need early childhood educators.
For those who need help now, the answer may be to simply give up their own careers and stay home.
I'm at a point where I hate Squamish, or I hate living in Squamish.
Parents say they're tired of playing games with their children's care. Belle Puri, CBC News, Squamish.
We're learning more tonight about how a 4-year-old got lost in the woods overnight in northern BC. Our Leanne Young joins us now with the details. Leanne, so how exactly did the boy end up going missing?
Well, Tycho Hazard and her friend were taking 4-year-old George Hazard Benoit berry picking near Mackenzie early Saturday afternoon. When they arrived, George didn't want to wake up from his nap, so his mom told him she would be close by and he should find her when he wakes up. Now, but when they went back to the car about 10 minutes later, he was gone. Then came the search crews, and eventually hundreds of volunteers, 2 canine units, a professional tracker, and a chopper. It wasn't until Sunday night, though, 33 hours since he was last seen, little George was found. Tycho Hazard says her knees just buckled when she got the news.
All the relief, all the tension just leaves. He's alive. He was found. He was alive.
The chopper had spotted George on the shores of Williston Lake. He was immediately taken to hospital. He told his mom he ate blueberries, and he heard people yelling for him, but like kids often do, he was hiding and scared and just waiting for his mom.
Oh, he is doing amazing. He was cold. He warmed up really fast, and he wasn't scared or crying or anything.
Leanne, does his mother have any regrets when it comes to all of this and how it actually unfolded?
Well, yeah, she certainly does. I'm sure as many parents would in this situation. This is what she had said when we asked her the question.
Like, there's so much that we wish we could have done so much more different, but there's no reason to dwell on that, and I will do it different in the future.
She says now she's just focused on her little boy's recovery. He is still in hospital, but doing very well. Anita?
Leanne Young, live for us tonight. Thank you. A man has been arrested after allegedly forcing a pregnant woman from her car and then causing a multi-vehicle crash on Vancouver's west side yesterday. Police say the woman, who is 8 months pregnant, was made to get out of her idling car near Alma and West 4th around 8:30 p.m. The suspect then drove off in her Honda Pilot. Police were able to find him near Granville and 70th Avenue after reports of a multi-vehicle crash. The suspect ran away but was arrested nearby. There are no reported injuries at the time.
This is a traumatic experience for anybody who's involved in this, and because of her advanced stage of pregnancy, we wanted to make sure that everything was okay medically with her.
The suspect is facing multiple charges. With just 2 weeks until school starts again in BC, teachers are heading back to the bargaining table. On Wednesday, the BC Teachers Federation will sit down for 8 days of mediation with the province to try to negotiate a new collective agreement. The BCTF says the focus will be on class size and composition, wages, along with recruitment and retention of teachers. There is a chance a deal will not be reached before September, but all parties say they are optimistic. Well, when ride-hailing finally comes to BC, you can expect to pay the same that you would for a taxi. That's just one of the major rules outlined by BC's Passenger Transportation Board today. CBC Vancouver News at 11 host Dan Burrett joins us live now. Dan, what are the big guidelines for ride-hailing?
There are 3, Anita. Let's take a look at them now. The first one, as you mentioned, minimum pricing. Now, ride-hailing companies' lowest price will have to be the same as a taxi. Goes up, but they can't use coupons or discounts to charge below that minimum. The second is no limit on fleet size. This is a contentious one, so companies like Uber or Lyft can put as many cars as they want on the road, at least for now, although the board says it will monitor to see if these fleet sizes need to change. And third, large boundaries. Ride-hailing companies will be able to cross city limits. The board says they need this under their business model. Now, taxi boundaries are going to stay the same. Despite these allowances, ride-hailing cars will not be allowed everywhere. The board says ride-hailing vehicles cannot pick up passengers on cruise ship days in and around Canada Place. We know it gets very busy down there. They say this is a safety measure to make sure that pedestrians are safe and traffic keeps flowing. Keep in mind, a lot of taxis work down there, especially on those busy cruise ship days. Ride-sharing advocates say overall they're pleased with these rules and they don't think customers will balk at the minimum pricing scheme. Take a listen.
What we know from our research is that the consumer wants the convenience, and they're quite happy with the same reference price as taxis. They just want to be able to get a ride. That's the most important thing when they want it.
Dan, I'm sure there's been a lot of reaction to this today. Are we also hearing from the taxi industry?
Yes, mixed reaction to say the least, but let's start with what Lyft told us. Here's their statement, at least in part. They say, while they are disappointed that the regulations do not include a provincial boundary, we are pleased that the large geographic regions were taken into account, meaning that they can work basically throughout Metro Vancouver, not have to worry about crossing city boundaries. The Vancouver Taxi Association declined to comment to CBC News about the rules, but the BC Taxi Association says it's not pleased with the boundary rule and the fact ride-hailing companies will not have a cap on fleet sizes, at least for now. Keep in mind, if you want to drive for a company like Uber or Lyft, if and when they eventually come here to BC, you will need to get that Class 4 license. Anita?
Dan Burrett on new rules for ride-hailing in BC. Thanks, Dan. Well, turns out noise levels on SkyTrain can get so loud they can actually be dangerous for you. And as our Estefania Duran reports, while there may not be immediate damage, there's still a cause for concern.
Most of us recognize that sound. That screeching noise from SkyTrain cars grinding down the track. But just how loud does it really get if you're riding the SkyTrain?
Screeching of the old trains, like steel on steel?
It's always been loud, ever since '86.
We rode the Expo and Millennium lines carrying a sound level meter. The louder it gets, the higher the decibels.
So if we're talking about, like now, we're talking about sort of 90 decibels as we're riding here, that's almost 4 times the occupational limit. So if you now go from half an hour riding at this level to 4 or 5 hours in a noisy workplace, and then you go to a noisy nightclub in the evening, and maybe you have hobbies that are noisy as well, they're all adding to your dose and all adding to that potential for noise-induced hearing loss.
Some areas saw levels go as high as 106 decibels. At that level, damage can happen within 4 minutes.
I usually have earplugs that I put on because the noise gets so distracting and annoying.
Did you find it that it was a bit loud?
Yeah. It was really loud.
And And although levels don't remain as high throughout the line, it's still enough to cause potential damage.
There's a pretty strong literature now that says that if you're exposed to chronic levels of noise around what we're talking about, maybe the 70 to 80 decibel range, you're actually potentially going to be at increased risk of having a heart attack or a stroke.
Some cars were louder than others. Older Mark I cars saw higher levels than newer Mark III cars.
They do have air conditioning, so the windows don't need to be open. They also have better soundproofing and better door seals, which prevent noise from getting in.
But don't get your hopes up just yet. Replacement of the older cars won't happen for another 5 years. TransLink looked into SkyTrain noise last year, but focused on how it was affecting those living near the tracks. To mitigate the noise, TransLink is looking into track condition and speed, which they say will also help noise levels inside the trains. So for now, experts say you should avoid the loud music to drown out the sound and opt for earplugs instead. Estefania Duran, CBC News, Vancouver.
You may not believe it when I tell you, but it is August and it is snowing in some parts of northern BC. Some communities today. Take a look. These photos were taken this afternoon on Pink Mountain, a town near the Alaska Highway. There was so much snow, it actually forced the closure of Liard River Hot Springs Provincial Park. A snowfall warning was issued for the Fort Nelson area. Drivers are warned visibility may be reduced and tree branches may break due to the heavy snow. Brett, I could not believe my eyes when I saw those pictures. Tell us what is happening.
Believe me, I instantly thought of you as soon as I saw that. I was like, Anita is not going to be happy with this.
No, you don't know. I actually love snow too.
Oh, okay. Well, just not in August though. I think that's definitely the unusual part here. So anyways, the way that it worked out throughout the weekend, there was just a low pressure system brought in a lot of really cold air from the prairies. That interacted with a lot of the classic BC warmth that came up over from the Pacific. And when you get freezing levels right below 1,000 meters, you get those scenes that you just saw there. Now, fortunately, down here in the south, we don't have to worry about winter. Presently, temperature's actually quite nice, sitting right around 20, 21 degrees, a little bit warmer into the valley. And for the overnight period as well, we're not going to be seeing too much of a significant change. We've actually seen a really nice clearing trend going on across the lower mainland. Definitely a few clouds to start off the day, but it is really nice and sunny. And those are dancers behind me. I can't really hear it, but they are definitely doing the regular Monday night thing. As well, temperatures, as I mentioned, going to be going down to maybe about 12, 13 degrees in Surrey, a little bit warmer here in Vancouver, and then tomorrow is going to be a really nice day and potentially the warmest of the day with temperatures right into the mid-20s.
Brett, summer's almost over. We're going to have to get you out there dancing with them on one of these Mondays.
I think that would be a good thing, totally.
Thank you. And you can watch this newscast and all of CBC's other award-winning content wherever you go. Just download the CBC Gem app. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Follow us on all of our platforms for extra content that you won't see right here on TV. A stark warning from Hong Kong protesters. They will meet violence with violence. After the break, the latest in the unrest, now in week 11. Well, it's been 2 months since hundreds of thousands of salmon got trapped by a rock slide on the Fraser River near Kamloops. But experts say the slide is not the only thing threatening salmon. As the CBC's Estefania Duran reports, it's adding to the bigger problem of an overall population decline.
Rescue efforts along the Fraser River continue to help spawning salmon migrate upstream. Close to 1 million salmon are expected this year, but one expert says that number alone is concerning.
A lot fewer fish return to the Fraser River than was expected. And we've seen now over the past 20 years just a general decline in returns in many species, in particular sockeye and Chinook. And so this trend, likely will continue into the future. A lot of this has to do with climate change in the ocean and in fresh water affecting their habitats.
More than 100 people have been working around the clock for 2 months now to help the trapped fish. And there's still no answer to when things will be resolved. Les Anton with the Kwantlen First Nation says the community is already seeing the decline, noting the slide will only make things worse.
It'll be the next 4 years after.
when this run gets through, if they get through, or if they make it home to spawn. Because I think they said they're lifted about 16,000 over now with the helicopters, but we don't know if they're going to make it to spawn.
Some of the trapped salmon have been transported upstream by helicopter, which can only transport about 1,200 fish a day. Multiple rocks and a 5-meter waterfall blocks their way. A new road has been constructed in hopes to help things.
We're building a road from our staining sites around the blockage to a location upstream where we're moving our fish. So now this will allow us to use truck transport to move our fish, which should increase our ability and to move a larger number of fish.
In a statement, Fisheries and Oceans Canada says 2019 is expected to be an extremely challenging year, adding plans might need to be adjusted if the salmon can make it up the river.
This particular landslide now creates another problem on top of those issues in terms of blocking migration for this particular cohort. And so this cohort could be significantly affected in the future, and others could as well if this particular barrier isn't remedied later in the fall and winter.
It's expected the numbers will continue to dwindle, and the landslide adds pressure to a declining population. Estefania Duran, CBC News, Vancouver.
Stay with us, and we will be back in just a few moments with what's making news around the world. Contingency plans are being made to help Canadians in Hong Kong. This comes as the territory braces itself for another week of large-scale demonstrations. Now, it's unclear exactly what those plans are, but today the Prime Minister defended the protesters' right to protest.
There are 300,000 Canadian citizens in Hong Kong. It's the largest group of citizens of any country in Hong Kong right now, so we're very concerned about them, but we also are very concerned about human rights and freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and we are going to continue to call upon the Chinese government to respect the one country, two systems agreement that they have long abided by.
This comes a day after China's embassy in Ottawa told Canada to stop meddling in Hong Kong's affairs. That's after Canada issued a joint statement with the EU urging China to show restraint with protesters and to listen to their demands. The unrest in Hong Kong has been going on now for 11 weeks. And while police praised the pro-democracy protesters for remaining peaceful during yesterday's huge demonstration, they also have a stark warning. They will meet violence with violence. The CBC's Chris Brown has more from a city on edge.
Well, Hong Kong more or less returned to normal today after a pretty good turnout for that march yesterday. Organizers peg it at about 1.7 million people. And just to put that in context, that's about 20% of Hong Kong's entire population. It's a measure, though, of just how tense things are here that some media are now actually referring to the number of tear gas-free days in the city. So after the event wrapped up, there were no significant confrontations between police and protesters. So that makes it the third night, the third tear gas-free night in a row here. It is also hard to quantify, though, exactly how much closer this has brought organizers to their goal. They've asked for 5 things, broadly speaking, focused on checking Beijing's influence here, halting an extradition bill, and also asking for an inquiry into the events of the last 3 months. I spoke to Bonnie Leung.
We never want to have weeks of protest carrying on. We want real results. So we are trying to contact Carrie Lam and see if she is really have sincerity to talk to us.
Carrie Lam is the chief executive of Hong Kong, and she has not met or shown really any inclination to meet with any of the protesters over the last number of months. It's also very hard to see that anyone appointed by Beijing to look after this territory would offer any kind of concessions that would diminish China's influence. So for this movement, it really does appear to be at a crossroads, and that is worrying for many, because then what you have left is a lot of radicalized protesters who over the last number of weeks have had a lot of encounters that have ended badly with police. So there's going to be some frustration there, and the concern is that could increase the violence still. It will still be ongoing in the evenings here. Chris Brown, CBC News, Hong Kong.
Buckingham Palace is dealing with a growing PR disaster. A newly released video appears to show Prince Andrew at Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan home in 2010. As the CBC's Margaret Evan reports, the video was taken after Epstein served time for sex crimes.
The Queen's favorite, so it's said, captured in images that have drawn the world's gaze back to his friendship with a registered sex offender. Prince Andrew peers out of Jeffrey Epstein's New York home in 2010. Young women and Epstein himself coming and going 2 years after the former hedge fund manager was convicted of having sex with a minor in a plea bargain widely condemned at the time as having been too soft.
What on earth was the Queen's son doing, a royal prince?
Andrew Pierce is a journalist with the Daily Mail. Its sister paper first published the video.
He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have taken any phone calls from that man. You can't forgive a paedophile, in my view, if you're a member of the royal family.
Epstein was found dead in a New York jail cell in an apparent suicide earlier this month, while awaiting trial on charges of trafficking underage girls. Questions about his relationship with Prince Andrew date back to this 2001 photo, showing a then 17-year-old girl with the prince at an Epstein party. Her claims that she was forced to have sex with the royal were dismissed by a U.S. judge. The ties between the two men, though, have been a recurring object of speculation over the years. Epstein even helping bail Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, out of debt. For the royal family, it is a PR nightmare.
Today, Buckingham Palace issued a statement on Prince Andrew's behalf. It said, quote, His Royal Highness deplores the exploitation of any human being, and the suggestion that he would condone, participate in, or encourage any such behavior is abhorrent.
But it has called the judgment of the Queen's second son into question yet again.
This isn't going away for 1 minute, and of course we still don't know what's going to happen in the United States. The girls who claim they're abused by Epstein just because he's dead, they'll probably sue his estate. There'll be all sorts of smoking guns in documents, which he's going to have to answer.
Small comfort to the institution they refer to here as the firm. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
You are looking right now at a live shot of Oppenheimer Park on Vancouver's downtown east side. People who have been illegally camping there have been ordered to leave by 6 p.m. on Wednesday. We'll go back to Mike there live talking with the people being evicted next. Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Most of them don't respond, or it's 2020, 2022. We'll get you in when we get you in.
Childcare along the Sea to Sky region has gone from bad to chaos. The city of Squamish is growing rapidly, but the number of daycare spots isn't keeping up, and that's frustrating parents. The local and provincial governments say work is being done to alleviate the crunch. When ride-hailing comes to fruition in BC, companies will be able to have unlimited fleet sizes. They'll also be able to charge as much as they want, but you won't see cheaper pricing than what taxis currently charge. Those are all part of the rules unveiled in our province today.
They should have given us 30 days, not just 2 days. For all these people that live in here, it's not right.
People living in tents in a Vancouver park have been told they need to pack up and get out. They've been given 48 hours to do so. Let's go back to that park now, Oppenheimer Park. That's where Mike is live. And Mike, you spoke with some of the people who are being evicted earlier today.
Yeah, Anita, there are more than 200 people living here in Oppenheimer Park in these tents. Some have been here for many, many months. The deadline, as you say, is 6 o'clock on Wednesday for them to leave. But some told me earlier today they have no plans to go anywhere. They're staying put. But others, like Amber Christensen-Bird, say they'll leave, but they really don't think there's going to be enough safe and secure housing for everyone here.
Good luck getting people to go if there's no housing. People will probably riot, and where are we supposed to go? People will just pick up and move to another park or move somewhere else, and it'll be the whole thing all over again, right? So I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully we'll find housing. Hopefully it'll be a peaceful situation, right?
Well, the city says it's identified about 100 safe and stable and secure SRO units or shelter spaces.
There's more than 100 people here. Yeah, there's probably closer to 200, I would say, give or take. There's more than 100, so, hopefully everyone will get housing.
If they could line up a place for you, would you go?
Of course I would. I don't want to be here. This sucks. It's hard.
How do you survive here?
You just do.
But it's not a long-term thing.
Hopefully not.
So, what do you think ultimately has to happen? What has to be done?
I don't know. Just pray that everyone gets housing and just a lot of people opening resources to helping, mental health, addiction, because that's, I think, a lot of it stems from, right?
So if they can't find a place for you, will you just stay here and be forced out?
No, I probably won't stay here, but I'll have to go somewhere else, maybe couch surf it again. I've done that for the last 4 months, is the couch surfing thing, and stayed at other SROs, but they're pretty bad conditions, like really bad conditions. And I actually chose to be here over some of the SROs because of the living conditions, the bathrooms, and just they're pretty bad. Mold. It's just, I felt like my health problems got worse in some of them because of how bad they were. Just, it's pretty bad.
Do you feel safer here?
I feel, when you get to know people and everybody kind of takes care of each other, right? So, you just don't do anything stupid.
Thanks for talking with us.
Thanks.
So Amber, like others here, willing to leave the park if there is what they call, a safe, secure, and stable housing arrangement. BC Housing says there are right now 100 units, SROs mainly, some that have been recently renovated that are available for some of these people to move into. So we'll see what happens between now and Wednesday's 6 o'clock deadline. Anita?
We will be keeping a close eye on it. Thanks, Mike. Well, at 6:35, you are looking at a live shot downtown Vancouver out onto the North Shore. Get ready for some rain in the forecast. How long will it take before things clear up? Well, Brett is here with the full forecast and all the answers next. Bats are a vital part of the ecosystem, and they are in big trouble across North America. A deadly fungus that started in the east is rapidly spreading west. But as the CBC's Greg Rasmussen reports, a new experiment hopes to stop the disease from hitting British Columbia.
Yep, that's good, thank you.
For Leah Rensel, there's nothing better than dipping your hands into a bin full of angry bats.
And this colony, I think, has upwards of 700 little bats, all in these bat boxes. You can see his sharp little teeth. They're so tiny. If he bites me, it can't even break the skin.
Despite the occupational hazards, researchers are trying to save these bats in British Columbia from a disease that's wiping out colonies across North America, killing bats by the million.
White nose syndrome is being touted as the most catastrophic wildlife disease to hit North America in recorded history.
It's caused by a fungus that slowly weakens the animals until they die of starvation. Losing them has consequences because bats play a vital role in pest management, some eating up to 1,000 insects every hour.
They're out cleaning up things in gardens, right, crops, forests. If we don't have bats, if our natural predator is basically gone from the night skies, then pesticide use will rise. Yeah, well, let's just get this first one done.
Scientists don't yet know the long-term impact on the ecosystem of such a drastic decline. To prevent the disease hitting British Columbia, a large new experiment is being launched.
White nose prevention on the way. Ooh, she's coming down.
Bat houses are being sprayed with a naturally occurring bacteria that inhibits the deadly fungus.
I have a lot of hope that this is going to work.
Nick Fontaine helped isolate and test strains of bacteria that show promise in protecting the bats.
To actually make an impact on preventing bats from actually going extinct or dying by the millions, that's amazing. So I like to just open it.
The hope is these bats will spread the helpful bacteria to others as they migrate and mate, inoculating them against the fungus.
This was the first one we did here.
Testing the theory is a lot of work. Bagging, tagging, swabbing hundreds of bats, looking for the disease and later to find out if the treatment works.
Bats. Bats are particularly cool.
So the cool thing about these guys' wings?
Enthusiastic but fearful, Rensel worries if it can't be stopped, white nose will eventually decimate these BC bats.
If we were to see the same catastrophic crashes as elsewhere in North America, that would have some long-lasting consequences for our ecosystem.
Overall, this program will cost several $100,000, involving universities, wildlife conservation groups, and volunteers.
Right now, everything is going very smoothly. We're quite excited, but we won't really know how things have performed until next summer.
High hopes for a project designed to save these creatures of the night from a deadly disease.
Here you go, Amy. You can get your bat back. Okay.
Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Port Coquitlam, BC.
Brett's back with a look at the full forecast.
Yes, and I wish I could promise that it was just going to be nice and sunny like it was for much of today, but we do have some rain, and this is good news though. Always like to balance this out. We do need some of this rain to keep everything nice and fresh and alive, and it's not going to be too much, so I'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to first of all show you what it looked like earlier today. To start off the new work week, how did it go? Well, I think it was not too shabby. We had a little bit of cloud cover first thing in the morning. You can still see some beautiful peaks of sun making their way through, and by the afternoon and into the evening hours, it really was just a very beautiful day. Temperatures right where they should be, and that was great. But as I said, we know this is the West Coast. We get some rain, and it is going to be coming in full force throughout Tuesday overnight into Wednesday largely for us. Right now, though, it is actually raining and will be continuing for Haida Gwaii and the North Coast particularly. It's going to be a bit heavy at times there, and that's going to be going through, eventually making its way across Vancouver Island, and then all the way throughout the lower mainland, essentially on those early pre-dawn hours of Wednesday. Now, it is interesting, we do have a rainfall warning in effect for Haida Gwaii with the potential for 60 millimeters of rain to be falling there through that period of time, but for us, we are not going to be getting anywhere close to that. Admittedly, we will be getting some much needed rain. The overnight period, as I mentioned, first thing in the morning on Wednesday is really when we're going to start to see this, so a bit of a soggy day to start, but then as we get through the afternoon, it is going to be clearing up relatively nicely. Getting into the late evening hours, we could be expecting some clouds to linger for a little while before it eventually does dissipate. And you may be wondering, well, how much rain can we be seeing? I'll show you on this legend here. Really, for much of the lower mainland, we're only looking between 2 to 5 millimeters, largely for the downtown core, maybe about 5 to 10 millimeters as we go farther into the Fraser Valley. But overall, the heaviest amounts are going to be far into the mountains, or as I already showed, up toward the north coast in particular. What does the rest of the week look like, though? Honestly, it's not going to be too bad. We've got 25 degrees as our forecast temperature for Tuesday, quite nice. Wednesday is our rainy day, feeling pretty confident about that and a little bit cooler. But you're going to see that come Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, our temperatures go right back to around seasonal, and mix of sun and cloud is going to be the main weather story there.
All right, thanks very much, Brett.
You're welcome.
Well, 2 Vancouver seniors have dedicated their entire retirement years to keeping our roads safe. Gordon and Kathleen Jones have spent countless hours setting up speed radar boards to remind people to slow down. The CBC's Tina Lovegreen met with the unstoppable seniors.
Partners in life and in law.
They measured this for size. Look at that.
Gordon and Kathleen Jones have dedicated 20,000 hours volunteering with the Vancouver Police Department. Every Saturday and Sunday for the past 23 years, they head out and set up a radar board.
Oh, it's working.
To remind drivers to slow down.
Someone's doing over 70 when it flashes like that.
At times, police officers would be stationed a few blocks away, ready to catch those speeding.
It makes their job a little bit easier. This is all the Speed Watch volunteers.
This all came together by chance. Gordon, a professor by trade, was also a reserve constable. And when he had to retire from that, he began volunteering with Speedwatch. His wife, Kathleen, who was an elementary school teacher, was called for duty when Gordon's partner couldn't make it out one day.
And the reason Gordon liked me going out with him is because I made a nice lunch when we came home, so he didn't have to do that. So he had a plus for him on the right thing.
The couple has been recognized for their dedication and countless hours of volunteer work.
I guess I feel kind of proud when we were putting our uniform on and coming in thinking, hey, we're doing something that is useful in our senior years. We're keeping on doing it.
But their proudest moment is getting others involved in the program.
Really nice little things happened that you did not expect at all. You know, today some people will say, oh, I can't bother, I don't have the time. You've got the time for anything you want to do if you really want to do it.
And the Joneses carved out plenty of time for their community. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Airbnb shuts down the account of one of its biggest Canadian operators, but guests with the booking had no idea until they walked through the door. What they found coming up. are just 9 weeks from the federal election, and as it draws closer, an environmental group is raising concerns that election rules could stop it from running ads saying climate change is real. But as Salima Shivji found out, it's not that simple.
It's an issue they're all talking about.
We have to be doing more to fight climate change.
Climate change is real, and it represents a serious threat.
And the scientific consensus has been overwhelmingly clear for too long.
We're in a climate emergency.
But there's one outlier. On what causes climate change, Maxime Bernier stands alone.
I didn't say that it's not real. What I'm saying is the main reason for climate change, it is not human activity.
And that means it could be deemed a partisan election issue by Elections Canada.
And it's because of climate change.
So paid ads created by environmentalists would have to be tracked if a group spends more than $500 on them, even if they don't mention a specific party. Some environmental groups worry they're being muzzled.
Why is the law structured in a way that silences people speaking the truth about a scientific reality during the election cycle? But we are not going to break the law, so we're going to be silenced.
For him, there's no debate and the science is clear, but experts say it's not so cut and dried.
Now, some people may feel that the environment is something that everyone agrees with, and therefore there's no issue. But that's not the case.
Elections Canada spent the day trying to explain the rules, saying what becomes a partisan election issue will be decided on a case-by-case basis. But that didn't stop the political attacks from flying on this issue several parties want to own.
If Max Bernier were to announce tomorrow smoking is good for you, do those doctors have to register as a third-party organization in order to say what's true about medical science? This is lunacy.
I think the whole question highlights the fact that it's so frustrating that there are still conservative politicians in this country who don't think that climate change is real.
And even the man whose position triggered the controversy tweeted his disdain for the rule, calling it absurd. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
Airbnb has permanently shut down the account of one of its biggest operators in Canada after a slew of bad reviews and canceled reservations. But guests who had already booked to stay at one of the properties say no one at Airbnb let them know. And as the CBC's Valerie Ouellette reports, they didn't discover the problems until they walked in the door.
Oh, no. When she isn't running after her two kids, Stacey Lapierre is running her online business. And this Nova Scotia mom decided she needed a vacation.
Yeah, this is the one that we booked.
Using Airbnb, she rented a loft in Montreal for her and some girlfriends for $200 a night. It was listed by AJ and had lots of great reviews in April. But when she and her friends walked in the door in July, they could not believe what they saw.
The floors were disgustingly dirty. There was broken mugs. There was yellow shower curtain. Like, it was just like, where are we? Like, this did not look like what we had booked.
We just felt like dirty being there.
She pulled up the listing again. Now it was littered with terrible reviews. Big disappointment with this apartment. Decrepit and dirty. Mold in the bathroom and dirty tub. Cockroaches in the kitchen. Airbnb had blocked the host from taking new bookings, but that was weeks before Lapierre and her friends arrived. She had no idea until we told her.
If he was suspended in June, I would have had ample time to get my money back.
In fact, a CBC News investigation earlier this year revealed the host, who uses the name AJ, offered more than 90 listings on Airbnb in Montreal, nearly the most out of anyone in Canada.
So it kind of stood out with the poker table one.
André Caron also booked one of those properties. After AJ was suspended, Caron noticed the same apartment now being offered by someone named Barry. Skeptical, Caron canceled.
I think enough bad reviews should essentially ban you from the site.
Both Caron and Lapierre want to know what Airbnb is doing to protect customers. Once we started asking questions, both AJ and Barry's accounts were completely shut down by Airbnb.
Airbnb says it closed both the accounts because they violated its policies and that travelers with pending bookings will be fully reimbursed. But it still hasn't explained why people weren't warned sooner about this. Valérie Ouellette, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, in the heat of summer, they're hitting the ice in Ottawa, hoping to make the national team. But just what nation exactly? Well, here's a hint. It's one that does not have an ice rink, but it does have big Olympic dreams. The details coming up. Dozens of women hockey players are in Ottawa hoping to skate into the history books.
That's right. They came from all across North America to try out for Lebanon's very first women's national team.
And as the CBC's Judy Trin reports, there's a lot more interest in the sport and talented players than organizers expected.
They've come from across Canada, the U.S., and even Mexico to compete for a coveted spot on Lebanon's national women's hockey team. Ottawa grade 11 student Nizreen Darwish has big hopes.
I want to break barriers for Middle Eastern women in sports and show that although Canadian ice hockey isn't a thing back home, Lebanese women can still play this type of sport.
24 women are trying out. Most are students, some are young professionals. One is a mother. The youngest is 15 years old, the oldest 36. Lebanon doesn't have a hockey culture, and with no talent pool to draw from, organizers are recruiting internationally.
Every single person on the team is of Lebanese descent. Right now, the current Lebanese law requires it to be via the father or the grandfather or the great-grandfather.
Organizers didn't know what the interest level would be or even how many Lebanese women played hockey, so they didn't put restrictions on skill. But the coach says he's been impressed with the players they've attracted.
There's girls coming from NCAA, which is a very college, playing college in U.S., it's a very good hockey caliber. There's players coming, playing like recreational, for fun. There's a girls playing. They've been playing high level maybe in the past, but the passion of hockey is still in there.
This CHIO employee has only been playing hockey for 3 years. At 32, Sulana Taha is also one of the oldest players trying out. Although she may not make the team, Taha says she can still be part of history.
It's an opportunity that I can say that I've done. To be also, it's part of history. We're the first team who's ever tried this, right? So I can probably tell my grandchildren that, hey, I was cool at some point in my life.
In order to get to the Olympics, organizers must raise enough money to build an ice rink in Lebanon. Judy Trin, CBC News, Ottawa.
I can feel the support just rolling in.
Yeah.
I think they'll end up raising enough
No,
money.
that's such a cool story. And honestly, I think they can all skate better than I can. That's the joke about me. I absolutely am worthless.
I'm not the greatest either. But you are seeing that more and more. Countries are allowing more nationals to come in beyond the teams for the Olympics. Yes. You can always find our news program, cbc.ca/BC. Go online. Dan Bird is here at 11 o'clock after the National. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.